So today my guest is Karsen Woods, who is the Chief Experience Officer of 888 The New World and can be found on carsondaily.com. Karsen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm very happy to have you. We've had a chat before, and we could have talked for Ireland, we could have talked for England, we could have talked for America. We just went on and on and on, went on. Just super. And I love the fact that you are you've got a number of jobs. You're a crypto pioneer, a crypto culture pioneer. You're in that sort of intersection of crypto and culture and pop culture, and you've done some really amazing things. And you're a relatively young woman, I think, still in your 20s. Am I right?
Yep, that's right. 26,
Early 20s, maybe.
26 years young. Yep.
Yeah. So that you've done an awful lot in your life so far, and lots more to achieve as well. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. So first of all, tell me a little bit about you went to college. What did you do before you became this crypto culture guru? What did you study in college?
Yes, I went to Castleton University, which is a small liberal arts college in southern Vermont. I'm from Vermont in the United States. And I studied public relations and women's and gender studies. So a lot of my focus area was in like pop culture and kind of media criticisms or critiques or analysis. And I did a lot of that through the lens of intersectional feminism, which helped me to really understand how patriarchal systems really influence the media that we consume and the pop culture that we consume. And it also helps me to see how pop culture really is intended to be like this. It, like, by definition, is the study of people within a society, but really the way I understand it and what I think is more powerful to understand is that pop culture actually is an influence too over people, and it dictates a lot of the decisions that we make in our lives, from what we choose to wear, how we dress ourselves, to what we watch on Netflix or Hulu or HBO Max on our couch and listen to our car when we're on the way to work. But also really as much power, it has as much power as influencing how we respond to global pandemics and elections and these real impacts on society too. So it's really powerful, and it's important to understand how these power structures actually have an impact on that as well, which is why feminism and feminist studies is such an important piece of pop culture as well.
Do you think pop culture is more influential on younger people? Is that, I mean, are the older folk not watching it or not responding to it?
I think there's different kind of niches or avenues within pop culture that influences everybody in their own way. I do think that the kind of overload and overstimulation of young people by pop culture is definitely changing a lot of things for us. And I think as I become older, and I have an 18-year-old sister, and someday, even when I have children, it's going to look a lot different. And I feel that I'll still be kind of under that spell of pop culture when I become an older person. But I do think that there's still a certain element of influence that it has over everybody, regardless of what your age or demographic or background is.
And do you think, because you did feminist studies and using a feminist lens to look at pop culture, is it different for men and women then? Do men and women respond differently? Are there different messages?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's such an important question. And there are certainly different messages, and there's a lot of really damaging kind of projections by pop culture, I think, on men and women both. It's kind of this age, this old study and kind of adage around women, trying to look like the girls on TV and in the magazines, and how problematic that is, but also the behavior that men and women see of other men in TV or in film and in video games too, can also be damaging and can also have a strong impact on society. I feel that now we're kind of honoring this what I like to think of as divine masculinity. A lot of people talk about divine femininity and toxic masculinity, but people really fail to mention that there is such a possibility of existence of divine masculinity as well, which is a
That's a
man.
new one for me. I like
Yeah,
it, because
me
feminism
too.
is all about, being inclusive and equal
Yes,
opportunities for
exactly.
everybody. So
Exactly.
divine masculinity. And what does that look like when that's at home?
I feel that it creates space and it acknowledges and honors that, we all have this yin and yang energy within us, this masculine energy and feminine energy. And it has different impacts on our lives. And we think of like masculinity as being like aggressive and go-getter and really like determined and convicted, where women are more, considered that feminine energy is more empathetic and kind of light and gentle, but everybody really has the possibility to have both. So divine masculinity, I think, it's somebody who embraces kind of their own feelings and their own like feminine energy within themselves, and also creates space for women and acknowledges that when women have space, it doesn't actually diminish or like it doesn't decrease their value as like a man in the world. And then of course there's, just I think acknowledging as well that there are people that don't necessarily identify within that binary too. So we have to think about how these different energies and the fluidity and opportunity for self-expression is ever present in our lives, and we have to give that more, we have to place more value on that. And I think that's, what really led me to love blockchain and crypto so much, is that it is about that identity and kind of this place for restructuring and thinking about, what we value and how we assign value to things, and the disruption of a centralized network or corporation is akin really to the dismantling of the patriarchy in my mind.
Okay, no, I like that. I want to go back just briefly when you said about the divine masculinity as well as the divine femininity. I remember years ago, I heard a talk in which the person was explaining a greeting that was given in some country in Africa. And I was a child when I heard this. But instead of saying hello, how are you? That, typical Western greeting, the greeting was, I witnessed the God in you. And that was the greeting. So it was like a literal translation. And that's what you're saying there. So we witness the God because and God is a conceit. I'm not saying it has to be religious, but it's the fact that it's the divinity thing. It's not flesh and blood. It's that soul thing that we witness in both. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so going back then to crypto. So you got into crypto in college. Is that how you met Bitcoin then?
Actually, no, I think I certainly came across it. Because as I said, like I've really studied a lot of different avenues of pop culture. And I think that Bitcoin certainly was having quite a moment at the time that I was in college. But it wasn't until really with Superplastic that I started to understand, and compare the philosophies of what I already kind of had, intrinsically understood through feminism and through, feminist studies.
And I should interrupt you there to say Superplastic, you were working for them. Can you
Yes.
explain who Superplastic were? People who don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So Superplastic essentially has built the very first animated character universe to use social media as its primary distribution network instead of a Hollywood studio. So they also are very well known for making incredible designer toys and collectibles and apparel. So it's really like this brand that exists, their product brand exists really in the world of streetwear and street culture, kind of that hype beast culture. And they also have this animated character universe. So essentially the characters exist on social media, they live their lives, and each post is more or less an episode, the same way you would watch like SpongeBob or, an Adult Swim show. I think more
So
adult
each
swim.
social media post is actually part of the story. It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
then
So,
you got to hang out with a lot of celebrity people who came into the story, like a bit like Simpsons, isn't it? They came into the
yeah.
Superplastic storyline on social media. Who did you meet?
So we had, oh my gosh, I've met so many amazing people. Steve Aoki, Rico Nasty, Christopher Kites, who's a really incredible young designer and super talented creative. So many amazing artists from the world of toys and beyond. We got to hang out with like Gucci, the people that worked at Gucci, So many people. I met LL Cool J once. It's just so awesome.
I'm going to have to put this list in the show notes afterwards.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to look them up myself because some of them I recognize.
Snoop Dogg, yes, Snoop Dogg.
No, Snoop Dogg, I know him. I know him. We're getting familiar territory now.
The list goes on. It was so much. It was so fun, and it's interesting because we were really talking about, excuse me, this world of being multi kind of media dimensional, like transmedia, where a virtual character, a celebrity with, virtual clothes, with all of their things in their lives, like a virtual house, was able to also exist in the real world, and how celebrities and people could actually come into their world as well. And I remember having a conversation with Steve Aoki's manager, and I was like, yes, and we'll sell digital clothes and assets, and we will have this whole digital universe and world, and Steve can come into it, and then the toys can come out and into the real world. And he was kind of like, okay, like, crazy woman. And we kind of skipped over that. And I realized, like, that was in, I don't know, 2018 or 19, I was talking about NFTs. Like, that's what I was talking about. I just didn't have the vocabulary for it.
And I got to do two things. First of all, for anybody watching or listening who's getting confused, it's like, I think The Simpsons is a good analogy, isn't it? Where you have real people and real things ended up in that cartoon series. It was all very packaged and off television. But with a metaverse or with social media, you can do it digitally. So it's kind of like, just to explain that kind of bridging thing, but also NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So they came out of the blockchain. Can you give me a quick go at explaining them, an idiot's 101 guide?
Yeah, definitely. I like to tell people that, an NFT is not really a what, it's more of a how. So in the same way that I was just talking about digital assets and existing like within this metaverse and in the real world, essentially what an NFT can provide is a verification of ownership over that like certified digital asset. So right now, I think what people are probably seeing the most often is that an NFT is being used to verify the ownership of a piece of art. Like right now, it's really mostly digital art or crypto media. And I think in the future, though, there's actually a lot of there's so many use cases for NFTs. I think, I try to explain to people, imagine right now you're buying a car and you go to a car dealership, and you're going to either buy it in cash or you're going to take out a loan with a bank, and you have a piece of that paperwork, you have that title, you have the title to the car that says you own it, and the car dealership or the bank also has a contract that says you're going to pay for it over time, or that you already have paid for it. Imagine like that title. Like I've been in a position where I've been like, oh my God, where is the title to my car? Like when I had to sell a car, you have to have that title. Imagine instead that actually exists within your digital wallet, which is encrypted by your digital identifier, or a seed phrase is what it's called. And that can just happen. That exchange can just happen via a transfer on the blockchain. And that's represented by that exchange is represented by an NFT. Like there's so much realistic, like real world implementation to just improve our daily lives and make them more secure, more digital, and and then also more decentralized.
And decentralized, of course, is a big part of the whole blockchain world, where it's central controlling bodies, decentralized peer-to-peer exchanges. You have what is, as it sounds, decentralized. There's no longer one central control. Everybody has a piece of the action, if you like. So one quick thing, equitable society, that comes both from your feminist studies, your desire to see that, and into the blockchain. So they kind of match in together in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what really encourages me about creating like an equitable society is that you can't, like, equity is about acknowledging the like challenges or barriers that some people face over others. So really not just like making something equal, but really raising the playing fields or creating more opportunities for people that have been traditionally marginalized or disenfranchised, so that they can create more opportunities for wealth, for success, for livelihood, just for happiness and freedom. And that's what crypto culture is to me. Like, this is a term that I hadn't really heard before. I don't know if like I'm the first or just, the most loud about it, but I really feel that crypto culture is this next evolution of pop culture, because pop culture really has created this opportunity, especially through social media, through TikTok and viral content, that anybody can kind of build their own platform, their own brand, and create wealth and create a professional job, a career, something that they're passionate about. And really, I feel that the blockchain and the world of crypto is allowing for a much more powerful expansion of that practice, because it's happening in a decentralized digital future, rather than fighting with this pay to play model on something like TikTok or Instagram, or a Hollywood studio that's going to be really like shut door, like everything is happening in kind of a container that you don't quite understand. I really feel that that's what crypto culture is. It's an equitable society, and it's real opportunities and lifting up people that haven't had access to those opportunities.
Oh, I admire that. I admire your thinking. But this part of the interview, I want to do two things. You've actually referenced as well a poem, Tupac Shakur's, if I'm saying it right. The rose.
Yes, you got it.
I'm nearly there. The rose that grew from the concrete. Do you have the words to hand there? Do you want to read it?
Do. Yeah.
I'd love you to read it if possible.
Sure. So this is The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac Shakur. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else ever cared. Oh God, it makes me like emotional. I love that poem so much.
And when did you come across it?
I have been like I have loved rap and hip hop for my whole life. I used to want to be a DJ, and I was inspired by like Slick Rick the Ruler and Eazy-E and Dougie Fresh, like real like 80s like rappers and DJs and hip hop artists. And this book of poetry was published shortly after Tupac's death, and I just remember hearing somebody say once, "The rose that grew from concrete," and I was like, it was so meaningful and like kind of really provoking to me. And I looked it up and I found this poetry book, and I also write poetry, so it was really interesting. And I feel that like Tupac is somebody too that had really like divine masculinity, but also like very like in a lot of ways probably very toxic masculinity too. It's worth acknowledging, but I just really loved this poem, and it's got me through a lot of difficult times. And that concept of being a rose that grew from concrete has really inspired me.
The idea of being resilient, coming from nothing, like stony soil, a beautiful thing can come regardless of its origins.
Definitely, yeah. It's hard to, I love thinking about like a vast field that has wildflowers, and or thinking of like somebody's home with like a perfectly manicured lawn and garden. And I grew up around flowers my whole life. My grandmother has like 500 species of wildflowers at her house in Vermont, and I just remember always being outside and being like, what's this one, and to think about now being, especially where I live in this big city of Los Angeles, and coming from Vermont, I think a lot about concrete and about kind of life and where things grow and how they come to surface, and just the ability to grow from, like you said, nothing, and not really knowing how you got there, but knowing that like there's nowhere else to be, and you don't have any other choice but to grow.
Do you ever go back into nature yourself, and is that an important part of your life experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think I do a lot of these like magnetic exercises. And I think a lot about like manifesting and how to like envision this life that I want, and find answers to challenges. And I always, when I enter kind of these like hypnotic states, I always imagine myself like laying in a grassy field at night and like looking at the stars. And I've been looking for stars ever since like I moved to LA, because the stars in Vermont are better than anywhere in the world. It's like, it's so beautiful and they're so bright. They can really like light up a whole field. And here, like, it really helps me to like go outside and even like look up at the sky. And when I don't see any, I remember
there's the light pollution, isn't there, from big cities?
Yeah, so much, really so much. But I mean, I also love the beach. Like, the beach is such a special place for me, and I love to be outside as often as I can. Yeah, definitely.
And then this section where we were talking before, and you said this is like this the first chapter of your life to the second chapter of your life. Is that when you were still working with Superplastic, or whereabouts were you in your career when you felt that transition to the next level of your life?
Yeah, I definitely was still, I think my transition started really when I chose to leave Superplastic.
Because you were famous then, you were getting thousands and thousands of hits and meeting all these rap artists, half of whose names I don't even know, apologies. And all these artists and these toy creators, and you were the face, you were the person that was out there.
Well, yeah, I was, I mean, I was so lucky because the CEO, Paul Budnitz, he really allowed me to drive a lot of these business opportunities and partnerships. And he would be like, you know, they would joke and be like, Karsen's like a boomerang. Like, we just send her off to get something or someone or a partnership, and she always comes back with it. Or Huck G, who was the art director there, and an amazing artist and toy creator, he would say, like, Karsen's a pit bull on a leash. Like, we just point her in the direction and she's off. Like, I think pit bulls are so sweet. So I think I would go and just, like, you know, smother people in love and bring them back. But I really had, also part of that was, you know, my identity was so connected, like so deeply intertwined with Superplastic, and it still is. And you know, so much of Superplastic is kind of like sprinkled in the Karsen glitter for sure. And that like was so empowering to me, and I was so fortunate to be on that journey. But I also didn't really know myself outside of that. And you know, it
was a lot to take on board. I think a young person, and you're this face of this massive business and all these famous people. It's hard to figure out who you actually are, I would imagine, with such attention.
Definitely. And, you know, when I worked at Superplastic, a lot of really like defining moments happened in my life. And, you know, I was so young, and I was in a very serious relationship with somebody that I thought that I was, you know, madly in love with, who's still such a great person. And he and I we got engaged, and I was so young, and I don't think we really understood what it meant. But I started to like be out in the world with Superplastic and understand that, like, I didn't really want like the big house with a farm in Vermont and to own like a whiskey bar.
Not yet, perhaps.
Exactly, not yet. And I had so much still life to live, but I also felt that, you know, I was kind of doing what I was supposed to be doing. And when I worked at Superplastic, I was employee number 3 there. So I was so a part of everything. And I was so determined. And it was almost like if there was something that wasn't going right with work, like it had such an impact on me. And it was because my identity was so connected to it. And you know, we launched a Kickstarter, the second Superplastic Kickstarter. And 2 days after Kickstarter launched, I got a call that my dad had died. And it was so like devastating and so tragic, and really a huge shock and surprise. And I could only bring myself to take 2 days off of work, because because it was like, I felt that I didn't even know how to like carry on, like, first of all, without my dad, and then to not have work was like, I didn't even know who I was in those 2 days. Like, I felt like my identity had been like completely stripped from me, because here I am, they're like, you have to take days off. And I'm like, but we're in the middle of like, our Kickstarter just launched, and they're like, we can't like, you can't be here. Like, this is so, and that was so hard for me. And like, I finally
You were very
started,
close to your father, I think, weren't you?
yeah, we were, yeah, we had like, I mean, my dad was an addict and he had a lot of struggles, and work was very important to him too. He was always trying to achieve, like always going over the top, above and beyond, so that he could have this amazing life and reach his potential. But ultimately, like, his own kind of insecurity and lack of identity and addiction held him back. And I feel that, you know, instead of acknowledging that right away, I made my identity more connected to Superplastic, and I made that my everything. And that
So you threw
really,
yourself into work. It was the loss of your
yeah,
father was too painful. Bang,
yeah,
into work, and work is busy and exploding and amazing. And
exactly. And that's why I felt, I think one day I just kind of like, I woke up and I was just like, who the hell am I? Like, I have no idea. And I came, and then, you know, we went into pandemic, the US lockdown, Vermont lockdown. Like, so I was alone for the first time in my life because I had just gotten out of this like 4-year relationship. I am working remotely. Like, the people that I would see that were getting me through every single day, where I would be like, these people are my family, these people are my family. I finally realized, like, no, they're not my family. They're my colleagues. And they actually have families. And these are the people that they're kind of locked down with. And like, my family is like, you know, has its own kind of challenges and fractures. And now I'm missing a huge piece of that family. But I was like, who am I here? And I came after, you know, we kind of made it through, you know, the really bad first phase of it. I actually came to visit some of my family that I have here in California for Christmas. And I spent 2 weeks here, and I had such a good time. And I really felt like I was myself. Like, I came back feeling like, oh my God, like, I know who I am. I'm somebody that loves to like be outside and do this stuff. And I'm so like kind and gentle and empathetic. And I don't have to work all the time. Like, I can take these breaks and I can still feel who I am. Like, I can feel it even more so. And really, like, when I got back to Vermont, I had to quarantine again for 7 days since I traveled out of the state. And those 7 days were the worst 7 days of my life. Like, they were so, like, everything was just like glaring me in the face of like how miserable I really was, like, in Vermont, and how much, you know, I felt like I was back and I was like trapped and like imprisoned and connected to this thing that I loved, being super plastic. I felt a little bit like I was a prisoner within it. Like, I curated my whole self so that I had no idea what it was like to be free from it, because I was so
it was
connected.
leaving very hard then, was it? Or was it easy or hard, or both perhaps?
It was both. It was both. I mean, that's where I think second chapter started. And that was where I felt like, you know, I got to be that rose from concrete, because I was like, I'm going to like fully free myself from this thing that I love and that has given me so much, but like that I can't continue to like take from without like giving myself back in another way. Like, it was just like this hamster wheel of amazingness mostly, but also like a lot of of interpersonal kind of challenge and struggle. And I feel that, you know, once I finally was like, I have to quit, and I told, you know, I woke up on one weekend, like, former CEO Paul had actually greenlit me to come live in LA and pilot a Superplastic office here, like a satellite office. And I thought that that was going to help. But I woke up one Saturday morning and I was like, I had this like voice in my head that was like, you should quit your job. And it got louder and louder and louder over the weekend. And on a Monday morning, I remember like 9:45, my hands were just like paralyzed over my keyboard. I couldn't start working. I've been there for like an hour and I couldn't start. And I saw my CEO walk in, and I just like trailed him to his office. And I was like, I told him I have to quit. And as soon as I said it out loud, it was like, whoosh, like everything kind of like this whole like time warp happened, and like color shift and change. Like, I felt like it was like that cover, like that page was just like finally turning, that I had been like pawing at for so long. Like it was finally turning, and like chapter 2 was just like sitting right there. And that's
exciting.
which is
I
where I
have to
am
admire you
now.
because many people would say, why would you give up that job? That's a dream job. She's all the glamour and the everything. And then to know yourself and to carry on it. I say for a young woman, you've been through a lot of things, a lot of emotion, a lot of thinking. There's a lot of thinking here because you're not having to sort of wandered blindly down this path. There's a lot of thought goes into it. And now you're in the space, and we mentioned earlier NFTs, which are these, these blockchain, they're unique digital assets. And you're in the 888, the new world. So do you want to explain what your new job is? I mean, the title, Chief Experience Officer. My goodness, what a great title. So what is 888, the new world?
Yes, well, I'm so excited, and I also love this title. And people are kind of like, "What does this mean?" But we'll get to that. 888 The New World is a digital art marketplace. We haven't quite launched yet, but we will be selling. We will be a platform for NFTs. We will also go beyond just digital art in like this kind of traditional sense, or the space that I guess not traditional, but what people are most used to right now. And we will have lots of integration of gaming and game development and bespoke programming and just all types of cool stuff. And why 888 The New World is different is because it was founded by an anonymous collector, crypto art collector, who goes by 888. And really like the inspiration and the differentiation of this platform is that the first round of investors and builders of the company were all artists, and they're all artists who have made a significant impact and made significant contributions to the NFT space and to the space of crypto art. And that's such a blessing. And so we're so fortunate to have that, because a lot of these platforms that exist right now that are leading the way are being built and kind of run by tech and venture capital. And really they lack like the kind of human touch and empathy that artists and creatives bring to building corporations and building brands. And everything that we're doing here at 888 The New World it's kind of like our sandbox in our container to shape the world that we actually want to live in. And we have all of these categories for curation. So we have a group of, I think, like 10 or 11 curators that will be hand selecting artists who apply to list and sell their work on 888 The New World. And that is so much different because, we're not thinking about who's going to bring in the most sales revenue or dollars. Like, we want it to be so beautiful and so well curated. And we have these special divisions that are dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion, artists' mental health and wellness, mentoring, providing like art resources and kind of education to people who are in K through 12 grades, who are young people that maybe are struggling in school, and really like empowering them to use art to kind of dig deep and find that inspiration to continue and be inspired in more traditional public school settings. So much awesomeness. We have a foundation where we'll go into developing regions and find artists that are native to that space and help bring them into the crypto world and crypto art space. It's just so much awesome stuff. We're building the platform using Flare, the Flare network, and the Flare network is amazing because it's almost like 1% carbon emissions, like so much like is significantly lower right now than things that are being minted on the Ethereum network. And oh my God, there's just, the list goes on. So it's amazing.
And just before we're going to get to the questions in a minute, who are the artists that are joining you on the platform? There's some big names there, I think, and some of which I even know.
Yes. So we have Alex and Allison Gray. We have Nest Graphics, Thank You X, Blau, Slime Sunday, Paris Hilton, Malavita. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. We have G Monk, we have David Aryu, Chad Knight. Oh my God, it's so good. Like all of these people who are really, Blake Catherine is incredible. All of these people who, have really been the silent, but like such effective champions, and not really silent, but like really truly working underground and like overnight to build this space and champion NFTs and the philosophy and the opportunity behind them. And it's just it's such an honor to be able to work with them and to have their kind of, their validation and endorsement of this platform and what we're building. And many of them have accepted positions within the company, which is
none as good of none of them have as good a title, as you, the Chief Experience Officer. Definitely the best title going. So tell me, where do people find, what's the platform called, and when does it go live?
It's called 888 The New World, which can be found at 888. It's 888tnw.com. We are launching likely at the end of the summer. We'll be pretty much ready to go in the next couple of weeks, but we just want to do some stress testing and kind of make sure that everything's perfect. Get some feedback from some people that we really respect and admire. And yeah, we're so excited.
Okay, so now to the questions. We've been through your life, 26 years of age, you're a celebrity, all these rappers, changing the world, your lovely dedication to your father. So 3 questions. Okay. What would you change, if anything, about your life so far?
The only thing that I would change, I always say that if I could have any superpower, it would be supernatural grace. I think that in my life, I have lacked a lot of grace. Like, even though I feel that I'm empathetic and that I'm kind and genuine, I think a lot of times I'm so sensitive and I can be like really chaotic, like where I feel like I have to outrun everything, and that's not being very graceful. And I think so if I could go back in time, like if I could change anything, I just would have more grace, because I think I would have saved myself a lot of stress and anxiety in that way. But it's something, fortunately, that I can still change, and
That's
I can.
True. Yes, going forward, you hopefully many years ahead of you, and much more so than behind. What is your biggest achievement to date?
I think my biggest achievement is just, I would be like, I can confidently say that I think that everybody that I've met and worked with and connected with in the last, I don't know, 3 years, I think they remember me. Like, I really think that they would remember who I am. If you went up to them and you were like, do you remember somebody named Karsen Woods? I think they would all say, yeah, I actually do. And that is such an achievement, because that's how my dad was. He was somebody that, like, you met him once and you could never forget who he is. Like, you never could forget him. And he was the person on the plane who stood next to the pilot and the stewardess, and to, like, the flight attendant, to wave you out and say goodbye. Like, that to me is like, that's such an achievement, to be that person. And I hope that it's true. I'm saying it with confidence. But...
Yeah, no. I think it's great, and I certainly would endorse that. It's only our second conversation, but I would endorse that. Thank you, Karsen Woods, Chief Experience Officer of 888 The New World. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts and your passion and your blooming with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. So happy.